This is What's the Deal, the economics show that breaks down what's really happening with your money and your career. Today's question is one that's keeping a lot of people up at night: will artificial intelligence steal your job? The headlines are everywhere. AI is eliminating thousands of jobs. Robots are taking over workplaces. Your career is in danger. It sounds terrifying. And here's a number that seems to back it up. In 2025, companies directly pointed to AI when announcing about 55,000 job cuts in the United States. That's real. That's painful for the people who lived through it. And to put it in perspective, that figure was more than 12 times the number of layoffs blamed on AI just 2 years earlier. So the trend is real, and it's accelerating. But here's the number the headlines tend to skip. Over the same period, AI was driving the creation of new roles at a far bigger scale. The World Economic Forum, in the most comprehensive employer survey on the planet, projects that by 2030, around 92 million jobs will be displaced worldwide, while 170 million new ones will be created. That's a net gain of 78 million jobs. Let that sink in. The biggest survey of employers in the world expects more jobs to exist because of this shift, not fewer. That's the kind of thing this show is about. The full picture, not just the part that makes the scariest headline. So if the future of work is on your mind, hit subscribe and check back tomorrow. New breakdown every day. When something frightening happens in the economy, the human brain locks onto it. Hearing that 55,000 people lost their jobs to AI triggers panic. Hearing that the same technology is on track to create tens of millions of new jobs barely registers. This is called media bias, and it's completely natural. Fear is simply louder than reassurance. It always has been. So let's look at what the numbers actually say, calmly. Through 2025 and into 2026, companies started talking far more openly about AI when they announced layoffs. But here's what gets lost in the noise. Even with that acceleration, AI was directly linked to only a small slice of total job losses in 2025, somewhere around 4 to 5% of the overall total. Yes, it's climbing. Yes, it deserves attention. But this is not the apocalypse some people are selling. And there's an important wrinkle here that almost nobody talks about. When a company announces layoffs and blames AI, that explanation is often convenient. Think about it from the executive's point of view. Telling investors, "We're cutting staff because we overhired and the economy is soft," sounds like failure. Telling them, "We're cutting staff because we're becoming a lean, cutting-edge, AI-powered company," sounds like strategy. Same layoffs. Very different story. Some economists have started pointing out that AI has become a kind of acceptable cover for cuts that companies wanted to make anyway, for ordinary reasons like slower growth or past overhiring. So when a headline says, "AI killed these jobs," it's always worth asking whether AI was the real cause, or just the most flattering explanation. History helps put all of this in context. The world has been through this before, more than once. When cars showed up, people panicked that every horse carriage driver, every stable hand, every blacksmith shoeing horses would be finished. When computers arrived in offices, armies of clerks and bookkeepers were supposed to vanish overnight. When the internet exploded, people were certain every store and every cashier would be gone forever. So what actually happened? Some people genuinely did lose their jobs. That part was real, and it was hard for them. But entirely new categories of work appeared that nobody could have predicted. Web designers. Software developers. Social media managers. App makers. Cybersecurity specialists. None of those were jobs in 1990. Today they employ millions of people. The work didn't disappear. It transformed into something new. A study from MIT found that about 12% of all work in the United States could theoretically be automated with today's technology. That sounds like a lot, until you flip it around. It means roughly 88% of work still needs human beings. Human judgment. human creativity, human relationships. And, theoretically, is doing heavy lifting in that sentence, because being technically automatable is very different from being automated in practice. A task can be possible for a machine to do and still not be worth automating, because the cost, the risk, or the hassle isn't worth it. And here's the pattern history shows again and again. Automation rarely destroys whole jobs outright. It eats specific tasks. A job is a bundle of tasks, and when a machine takes a few of them, the human shifts to the tasks that remain, usually the ones requiring judgment, oversight, or a human touch. The job reshapes itself. The person adapts. That cycle has repeated for 2 centuries. So before the panic takes over, let's look at what's actually happening right now, with real examples. The number of companies citing AI in their cuts is growing fast, and some of the names are huge. Take a few concrete cases from the last year or so, because they reveal more than any statistic. Workday, the company that makes software for managing human resources and finance, announced it was cutting around 1,750 jobs, about 8.5% of its workforce. The CEO explicitly tied it to AI, framing it as repositioning the company for an AI-driven future. HP, the computer and printer maker, said it expected to cut between 4,000 and 6,000 jobs as part of a push to boost productivity with AI, projecting $1 billion in savings over a few years. Amazon announced cuts of around 16,000 corporate roles. Interestingly, in its internal memo Amazon didn't loudly blame AI, but it talked about how a leaner structure allows faster innovation, language that points in the same direction. Smaller companies like Pinterest framed their cuts explicitly as a way to redirect money toward expanding their AI capabilities. Now, notice the pattern. In 2025, of the roughly 55,000 AI-attributed cuts, about 51,000 were in tech, and most were concentrated in tech-heavy states like California and Washington. That's a crucial detail. This is not, at least not yet, a broad wave hitting every worker in every town. It's heavily concentrated in one industry, in specific places. If you work in corporate tech, this is your reality right now. If you're a nurse in Ohio or an electrician in Texas, the picture looks completely different. Why is this happening now, and not 5 years ago? Because AI has become cheap and accessible. Not long ago this technology was expensive and locked inside giant corporations with huge research budgets. Now a capable AI subscription costs less than a few dinners out per month. Any company, any team, even any individual, can plug it in. That changes the math for everyone, all at once. But here's a number that doesn't get nearly enough airtime. Most workers whose jobs are exposed to AI are not actually getting replaced. They're adapting. Their job doesn't disappear. It changes. The day-to-day work becomes something different, often something better. Take a copywriter. Right now, AI can knock out a first draft in seconds. But that draft still needs a human to edit it, to make it sound real, to give it a point of view, to check the facts, to make sure it isn't quietly, confidently wrong, which AI very often is. The copywriter who learns to use AI doesn't lose their job. They produce 3 times as much, and they spend their time on the judgment part instead of the blank page part. The job didn't vanish. It leveled up. And here's what really matters right now. The demand for entirely new kinds of work is exploding. Somebody has to train these AI systems. Somebody has to check whether the AI is giving good answers or confident nonsense, a job people are starting to call AI oversight or quality control. Somebody has to build the enormous data centers where all of this AI actually lives. The numbers here are striking. Demand for AI engineers has jumped by well over 100%. Big data specialists are projected to see the largest net job growth of any role in the entire world between now and 2030. And here's the one that surprises people most. Even software developers, the very people supposedly being automated away by AI that writes code, are projected to grow nearly 18% over the next decade. The tool that was supposed to replace them is actually making more of them necessary, because now every company wants software, and developers who use AI can build it faster. And it goes well beyond the tech workers themselves. Every major data center needs roughly 1,500 workers just to construct it, and these projects take years to complete. That's ordinary, well-paid work. Builders. Electricians. Plumbers. Heating and cooling technicians. Engineers. Not jobs that require a PhD in machine learning. The AI boom is, somewhat ironically, one of the biggest construction booms in recent memory. There's a ripple effect on top of that. When a data center opens, the local economy around it grows. The people working there eat at restaurants, shop at stores, rent apartments, use local services. Economists estimate that for every worker inside the data center, several more jobs get created in the surrounding community. So when someone says AI created a certain number of jobs, the real total is much higher once you count everything that grows around it. Now for the question that actually matters for your career. Which jobs are genuinely in danger? Be honest about it. Not every job is equally at risk. Some are far more exposed than others, and pretending otherwise helps no one. Start with work built on the same simple task repeated over and over. Retail cashiers are a clear example. Walmart's self-checkout expansion could replace around 8,000 positions, and a single warehouse chain's automated verification rollout could eliminate another 12,000 cashier jobs. This is work that repeats almost identically thousands of times a day, which is exactly what machines do well. Truck drivers are another. Research from MIT and Boston University points to self-driving technology displacing huge numbers of driving jobs over the coming years. That's a serious risk worth being honest about, even if full self-driving has taken longer to arrive than the optimists once promised. Manufacturing has been feeling this pressure for a long time, well before the current AI wave. Since the year 2000, automation has already wiped out around 1.7 million manufacturing jobs in the United States. Assembly line work, machine operating, packaging, quality control. Oxford Economics warns that up to 20 million manufacturing jobs could disappear globally by 2030 if automation keeps accelerating. Then there's routine office work, and this is where some of the newest losses are landing. Customer service representatives. Certain kinds of administrative assistants and salespeople. Data entry clerks. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracked 18 occupations it flagged as exposed to AI, covering about 10 million jobs. Over a recent 12-month stretch, employment in that exposed group actually fell, even while jobs in the wider economy grew. That's a real, measurable signal that something is shifting in white-collar work specifically. Translators and interpreters are extremely exposed, with tools like DeepL and Google Translate already doing much of the routine work. Even loan processing in banking is being automated rapidly. Wall Street banks are expected to cut large numbers of jobs over the coming years, mostly in entry-level and back-office roles, the rungs of the ladder young people traditionally use to climb in. And that last point deserves a pause, because it's one of the most worrying parts of this whole story. A growing body of evidence suggests AI is hitting young workers hardest. Employment for the youngest workers in AI-exposed fields, people in their early 20s, has fallen noticeably compared to a few years ago, while employment for older, more experienced workers in the same fields has stayed stable or even grown. The reason makes uncomfortable sense. AI is very good at the simple, entry-level tasks that beginners used to do to gain experience. If a company can hand those tasks to AI, it has less reason to hire and train a junior person. That's a genuine problem, because it threatens the bottom rung of the career ladder. So that's the hard part. Now the reassuring part. Which jobs are genuinely safe? Any job that runs on real human contact and emotional support is secure. Nurses. Therapists. Social workers. Caregivers. AI can help with a diagnosis or suggest a treatment plan. But sitting beside a frightened patient at 2 in the morning and actually being present with them? That stays human. And the demand is enormous and growing. The number of nurse practitioners alone is projected to grow by more than 50% over the next decade. An aging population needs more care, not less, and there is no machine that can provide genuine human comfort. Creative and original work is safe too, though it's evolving. Artists, musicians, writers, filmmakers, designers. Yes, AI can generate images and text and music all day long. But making something with a genuine point of view, something that resonates because a human meant it, remains a human act. The creators who thrive will be the ones who use AI as a tool rather than fearing it as a replacement. Then there are the skilled trades, and these may be the safest of all. Carpenters, electricians, plumbers, builders, mechanics, HVAC technicians. These people train for years, and they solve a brand new physical problem on almost every single job. A robot cannot show up at an old house and instantly figure out why the wiring is strange, or crawl under a sink in a cramped cabinet, or diagnose a rattle in an engine by listening to it. The physical world is messy and unpredictable in ways that defeat automation, and demand for these trades stays high. There's even an argument that as everyone rushes toward college and desk jobs, the trades are becoming more valuable, not less, simply because fewer people are entering them. Leadership and strategy are protected as well. Managers, directors, the people making the big, uncertain calls. AI can crunch the numbers and lay out the options. But deciding where a company should actually go, reading the room, motivating a team, taking responsibility when things go wrong, that takes human judgment and human accountability. Here's the thread tying all of it together. If the work depends on talking with people, on empathy, on physical dexterity in an unpredictable environment, or on reading and judging a messy real-world situation, it's relatively safe. The tasks inside the job may change, but the job itself survives. The statistics back this up. Estimates suggest that around 60% of jobs will be changed by AI rather than eliminated. Changed, not erased. Your daily tasks might look different in 5 years. But the job is still there. Now zoom out, because the United States is just one piece of this. Other countries are looking at something very different. The International Monetary Fund estimates that AI could affect around 40% of all jobs worldwide. That sounds alarming at first. But, affect is not the same as eliminate. It means the work changes in some way. And the impact is wildly uneven across the planet. In wealthy countries, roughly 60% of jobs are exposed to automation. In poorer countries, it's closer to 26%. Why such a huge gap? Because in poorer countries, a large share of work is physical labor that robots can't do more cheaply than people can. Clothing assembly, farming, mining, construction, service work. Robots are expensive to buy, install, and maintain. A worker earning a few dollars a day is far cheaper than a machine that costs $100,000 up front. So in much of the world, the economics simply don't favor automation yet. In rich countries the math flips. The moment AI costs less than a human for a given task, companies lean toward AI. So the wealthier the country, the more exposed its workforce, which is a strange reversal of how we usually think about technology and progress. There's an odd paradox hiding in here. AI might eventually help poorer countries compete. Why pay a worker in a wealthy country a high salary when an AI system can do the same knowledge task for a fraction of the cost, from anywhere on Earth? Some work could shift toward developing economies that have the talent but lower costs. But that's the long game, and it's far from guaranteed. In the near term, the global projections are sobering but not hopeless. The World Economic Forum expects around 92 million jobs to be displaced globally by 2030. The crucial thing to remember is what sits alongside that number: 170 million new jobs created. The net result is positive, by tens of millions of jobs. But it is absolutely not painless. And that's the real catch, the thing that should worry us most. The jobs being destroyed and the jobs being created are not the same jobs. They don't need the same skills. They don't pay the same wages. They aren't even in the same places. A mail clerk in a small town whose job gets automated does not magically become an AI engineer in a tech hub 1,000 miles away. The gap between those two realities, between the worker displaced and the worker in demand, is exactly where the genuine human cost of this transition lives. The aggregate numbers can look great while millions of individual people struggle. Both things are true at once. So where are the new opportunities actually opening up right now? First, everything connected to AI itself. AI engineers. Machine learning specialists. Data scientists. Prompt engineers. These roles barely existed a decade ago, and the pay is high, often well into 6 figures. The catch is obvious. These jobs need study, math, and technical skill. They aren't for everyone, and that's an honest limitation. But plenty of other doors are opening that don't require a computer science degree. The green economy is one. As some jobs get automated away, work in renewable energy is booming. Solar panels need installing. Wind farms need building and maintaining. Electric vehicles need servicing. Power grids need upgrading. This work is physical and context-heavy, exactly the kind AI can't easily touch, and it's growing fast as the world shifts its energy systems. Care for an aging population is another enormous one. The world is getting older, and quickly. People need nurses, home health aides, physical therapists, cooks, companions. A robot cannot give an elderly person the genuine feeling of being cared for by another human being who notices when something is wrong. This is one of the fastest growing areas of the entire economy. Creative content keeps expanding too. People always want more. New music, new video, new stories, new games. AI can assist with all of it, but audiences ultimately want work made by real people they can connect with. The entire creator economy, the world of online video, podcasts, and independent media, runs on human-made content and human personalities. Here's an honest catch worth naming clearly. A lot of these new jobs pay less than the technical ones that may be disappearing. A home health aide does essential work but often earns far less than the data analyst whose role got automated. So even as new work appears in large numbers, it may not pay what the lost work paid, and it may not be where the displaced workers live. Pretending this transition is smooth helps no one. It's real, it's net positive in the aggregate, and it's genuinely hard for many individuals. All three are true. Which leads straight to the thing people worry about most. Money. Salaries. Automation has always had a complicated relationship with pay. On one hand, a worker who uses AI to do more should, in theory, earn more, because they're more productive. On the other hand, when lots of people can suddenly do the same job with AI help, that labor becomes less rare, and pay gets squeezed. Economists call this wage compression, and it's a real risk for many roles. Now the same pressure that hit factory work decades ago is reaching white-collar work. College-educated office workers. Analysts. Report writers. Paralegals. Among U.S. companies, a meaningful share have already replaced at least some workers with AI tools, and of those, roughly half say employees were directly replaced rather than just reassigned. That doesn't always mean mass firings. Sometimes a team of 10 quietly becomes a team of 8 through normal attrition, with the 2 departing people simply never replaced. Sometimes a task that took 8 hours now takes 2. But for wages, the effect is similar. Even a worker who keeps their job loses leverage. It's much harder to ask for a raise, or to threaten to leave, when the employer can point to a tool that already does part of the work. There are 2 solid ways to avoid falling into that trap. The first is to become genuinely expert at something AI can't replicate. Deep knowledge of an industry. Real relationships with clients who trust you specifically. The judgment to make good calls when the situation is uncertain and the data is incomplete. AI can make that person dramatically faster, but it can't easily replace them, because their value lives in exactly the places AI is weakest. The second is to learn to use AI before everyone else does. Someone who masters these tools early becomes far more productive than colleagues who don't, and that productivity is itself a form of job security. Companies want people who can work with AI and get 5 times the output. They don't want people who refuse to touch it and quietly fall behind. The phrase going around captures it well: AI won't take your job, but a person using AI might. So what should someone actually do, starting today? Let's get practical. Stop panicking, and start moving. The data shows somewhere around 14% of workers have already felt some hit from automation or AI. That's significant, but it's nowhere near a majority. Anyone listening to this still has time to prepare, which is an enormous advantage over the people who got blindsided with no warning. Learn how to use AI now. There's no need to become a programmer. Just understand what the tools do and how to drive them well. A couple of hours a week with a tool like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Copilot goes a long way, and most of the learning resources online are completely free. Then use it on real work. Let it draft a report, then edit it sharply. Let it outline a presentation, then refine it. Let it summarize a long document, then verify it. Within a few weeks, a noticeable jump in speed and confidence is normal. Invest in the human skills no machine can take. That doesn't require expensive courses. A manager should sharpen real leadership and the ability to develop people. A consultant should get better at listening and understanding what clients actually need beneath what they say. A specialist should go deeper in their field until they're the person others come to. AI can generate information, but it can't carry 10 years of hard-won judgment, and it can't hold a relationship built on years of trust. Be willing to change direction. By 2030, a meaningful share of workers will need to shift careers because of AI. That's not the same as losing everything. It means the work evolves and the skills have to follow. A truck driver worried about self-driving technology shouldn't wait until the trucks arrive. The time to think about the next move, whether that's logistics coordination, equipment repair, or something else entirely, is now, while there's still time and stability to do it from. Have honest conversations about pay and your role. When AI starts changing a job, it's far better to get ahead of it than to wait quietly for a pay cut or a layoff. Talk with your employer about how the role is evolving, about taking on more complex work that AI can't do, about becoming the person who trains others to use these tools. Those conversations are uncomfortable, but in this era they're essential. And choose employers carefully when you have the choice. Some companies see AI purely as a way to cut headcount as cheaply as possible. Others see it as a way to make their existing people more capable and valuable. The difference matters enormously for your future. The right questions are simple. Does this company invest in training its people? Does it pay fairly? Or does it squeeze for the fastest possible results at any human cost? It's worth stepping back into history one more time, because it puts all of this anxiety in perspective. In the early 1900s, around 40% of people in developed countries worked in agriculture. The fear was obvious and reasonable. If tractors and harvesters arrive, what happens to all those farmers? Well, the machines did arrive, and over the following decades tens of millions of farming jobs vanished. It was a genuine upheaval. But those people didn't simply sit idle forever. They moved to cities. They took factory jobs, then retail jobs, then office jobs that their grandparents could never have imagined. Today only about 1% of Americans work in agriculture, and the country didn't collapse. It grew far richer, and food became more abundant and cheaper than ever. Manufacturing told a similar story a generation later. In the 1950s, the United States was a nation of factory workers. Then automation and globalization arrived, and over 70 years manufacturing shrank dramatically as a share of the workforce. It didn't trigger permanent mass unemployment. People moved into services, finance, technology, and healthcare. Living standards rose to among the highest in the world, even with almost nobody left on the assembly line. Here's the honest takeaway from history. Automation hurts in the short term, and the hurt is concentrated on specific people in specific places. They have to retrain. Sometimes they have to move. It is genuinely difficult, and the pain is real for those caught in it. But over the long run, this kind of change has consistently made society richer, made goods cheaper, and freed people up to do more interesting, less backbreaking work. That doesn't mean the pain should be ignored or waved away. People who lose jobs to AI need real help. Retraining programs that actually work. Financial support while they find the next thing. Both governments and companies have a role to play here. But trying to freeze technology in place to protect existing jobs has never worked in all of history. It just slows down the gains for everyone and protects no one for long. It's worth being clear-eyed that smart, serious people disagree sharply on all of this. There are roughly 3 camps, and it's worth understanding each. The first camp says this time is genuinely different. They argue AI will eventually become so capable that it replaces human work faster than new work can appear, and that society needs radical new systems, like a universal basic income, to cope with the fallout. This view is held by some serious thinkers, including leaders of major AI companies who warn that AI could wipe out a large share of entry-level office jobs within a few years. It might be right. But it's the most pessimistic version of the future, and the long sweep of history doesn't strongly support it. The second camp says relax, because every wave of technology has created more jobs than it destroyed, and this will be no different. There's real, hard data behind this view, including those net positive job projections of tens of millions of new roles. But this camp tends to wave away the very real pain of the transition, which can last years or even decades for the specific people caught in it. The third camp says progress is good, but it has to be managed thoughtfully. Invest heavily in education and retraining. Strengthen the safety net so people aren't crushed while the economy adjusts. Pay attention to that bottom rung of the career ladder so young people can still get started. Of the 3, this is arguably the most grounded, because it takes both the opportunity and the pain seriously. AI isn't good or bad on its own. It's a tool. What it does to people depends on the choices made around it, in policy, in companies, and in how much society chooses to invest in helping people adapt rather than leaving them behind. So here's where it all lands. AI will change the job market. That much is certain. Some jobs will go, and the loss will be real for the people in them. But new jobs will appear, and the best available projections say more jobs will exist in the end, not fewer, by tens of millions worldwide. Every single time a major technology has shown up, people have feared for their work. Sometimes that fear came true for individuals, and we should never be glib about that. But society as a whole adapted, and over time people ended up better off. That has been the pattern for 2 full centuries, through far more disruptive changes than this one. Still, this isn't a reason to relax. It's a reason to act. Learn to use AI, because it makes a person dramatically more productive and more secure. Invest in the human skills no machine can take, like leadership, creativity, physical craft, and deep expertise. Stay ready to adapt, and start before the change is forced on you. Be honest with employers about pay and expectations. And above all, don't let the fear freeze you into doing nothing, because doing nothing is the only truly losing move. People are adaptable. They're inventive. They've come through massive technological change before, repeatedly, and they'll come through this one too. The ones who do best won't be the ones who resisted the change. They'll be the ones who understood it early and moved. AI is a big change. But it isn't the end. It's an opportunity, for anyone ready to meet it. That's the deal for today. Subscribe and check back tomorrow for the next breakdown of what's really happening in the economy. And drop any questions about AI and jobs in the comments.